Very, very.
So welcome everyone to our panel today. I'll be moderating. My name is Bunmi Esho, and I'll be moderating this discussion today on education and its role for women business leaders and entrepreneurs. But before we get started, I did want to invite everyone in the conversation via chat. So please join us in sharing your thoughts on the questions that I posed to our women leaders today. So I want to first start with introductions. And I'd love to start with Idunn. If you could just give a brief bio about what you do.
Thank you so much, Bunmi. So Idunn Jonsdottir, I work for IESE Business School, and I've been working there for the last 23 years, of which 18 at our headquarters in Barcelona and now almost 5 in New York. IESE is a global business school. It's a top-ranked business school. We have locations in 5 different places: Barcelona, Madrid, Munich, Sao Paulo, and New York. And through this 23 years, I've held different leadership positions, such as launching our international executive education, where I took the leadership of launching flagship program like the AMP, Advanced Management Program, and the Global SheEO program for China that we partnered with Harvard Business School. And I also run our custom programs, partnering with global companies and helping them through learning experience accelerate strategic priorities and create leadership behavior. And currently, I'm the Chief Executive Director of our campus in New York. And I'm a big advocate in supporting women in business and to support women into a senior executive position in C-suite. And I want to see more women into the boards. And I'm a member of different women's network, and I'm a founding member of CHIEF here in New York and the Spain-US Chamber Women Business Council. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Idunn. Vicki, could you share a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Hi, I'm really happy to be here this morning. I'm Vicki Saunders. I'm the founder of SheEO. And we have a whole new, like a kind of radically redesigned ecosystem to support women entrepreneurs on their own terms. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life and had pretty much every kind of financial capital there is out there, from taking a company public right through to grants, just the whole spectrum. And I think a lot of the approaches that are out there are not really designed for us. And so I was like, if you were starting over again, we would do this very differently. And so at SheEO, our model happens this way. Hundreds of women in each country that we're in contribute capital as a gift. Small amount of money, $92 a month, $1,100 a year. It's pooled together with all the other hundreds of women in the country who contribute that capital. And then entrepreneurs apply in a really simple process, 10 questions. They need to be revenue generating entrepreneurs between $50,000 and $2 million in revenue. So they apply, they need to be majority woman owned, woman led, hit our revenue targets, and then also be working on what we call the world's to-do list. So working on a UN sustainable development goal. And then all of us, the hundreds of us in each country, go online and we vote. So it's 100% democratic process to vote for the ventures that we're excited about. And then when you're selected, you get a 0% interest loan, which you pay back over 5 years. But the big thing that you get is access to the hundreds of us to be your customers, advisors, supporters, open up our networks and influence to help you to grow your business. We started 5 years ago in Canada. We have about 7,000 activators, these women who contribute capital across 5 countries, and we've funded 107 different women entrepreneurs. And our goal is to get to $1 billion fund as soon as possible, funding 10,000 entrepreneurs a year. So really sort of the ecosystem-based approach, money plus the support of like thousands and thousands of women.
Excellent. Thank you, Vicki. So I want to just check with Michelle. I think, being that we're in this remote world right now, Michelle might have had some technical difficulties. Michelle, if
no, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, so
okay,
yeah. So video
okay, so sorry. So I was I'm a career switcher. If you'd ask me what I do, my job title, I would say hodgepodge and cross-pollinator. I was a senior vice president at Disney in charge of new products. I was a vice president and general manager at Pepsi, also in charge of new products, and also worked on new products at Nestle and J. Walter Thompson on health and beauty, age, financial services, and food. I've been teaching for now almost 20 years at a lot of different business schools, but the ones I primarily teach at are Columbia Business School, NYU, and IESE from Spain. So I know Idunn from there. Also write for Forbes about innovation of all types, technology, marketing strategy, new marketing techniques, platforms, things like that. I wrote a book called Catalyzing Innovation to help companies and entrepreneurs innovate in a more systematic and complete way. I went around the world taking pictures of anything that I saw was innovative in a sector and saw patterns of innovation and broke it into 63 different categories. And I use that for my teaching. Also, I'm doing a podcast series right now, interviewing leading global innovators across sectors, many of them women in lots of different fields, including fintech, healthcare, things like that. And I have a lot of interns who are helping me do Instagram around innovation and TikTok around innovation. I teach digital marketing at Columbia in the Master of Sciences and Business Analytics program. And I teach a lot of courses that relate to entrepreneurship and innovation at all the business schools. There you go. That's it.
Just that. Thanks,
Yes.
Michelle. So you can see that we just have a lot of varied experiences here. And I'll kind of round out as moderator just to kind of share my experiences. So I've been, I started off as an engineer and really pivoted into the education sector. So my background has been in education, nonprofits. For the past 15 years, I've been a nonprofit leader, and I've also been a philanthropist. So I've had the opportunities of really working in founding organizations that support women and girls in particular, and being able to can just support, economic mobility around that, as well as just social well-being as well. And I've been, as a philanthropist, I've also been in other giving circles that really have supported educational nonprofits. And I'm now investing in Black leaders. I am a founding investor of 4.0's Angel Syndicate. And kind of with all of that, I've really even seen just when it comes to entrepreneurship, I've started, my own business as well, specifically around STEM, just because that has been my advocacy. And my current role is with the Endless OS Foundation, where I really am working towards bridging the digital divide with the focus really around digital access. So when it comes to how can we ensure that all communities, not just those who have current internet access and digital access, can thrive, making sure that those who don't necessarily, have that access can be involved in just the amazing industries and the amazing opportunities that exist right now. I have the one key question that I do want to ask, but before that, I just wanted to check in. Michelle, it looks like your video. First question that I have really is, as you consider what you knew when you first started and what you know now, what learnings or knowledge were you missing that would have made being an entrepreneur easier? And the question I have is for everyone, and so we can definitely start. I'd love to start with Vicki first. Is there an educational foundation that's most helpful?
Doing. From my perspective, there's literally no book you can read. There's no course you can take. Being an entrepreneur is a super crazy pursuit. And I just really think that the best way to learn is by getting in and experiencing things and trying things. It's so hard to prepare for all the crazy things that will come your way. And so, I think that if I was sort of looking back over what I do differently. That's kind of what I did when I designed SheEO. So as an entrepreneur, I spent a lot of time thinking I had to do everything myself. There's such a narrative out there that we have to know everything. And that kind of there's a double challenge there with how women are conditioned in society to think that we have to be perfect before we do anything. And so I would just like to say, if that's how you feel in your mind, please delete all of that. It's hard to delete this conditioning, but the number one thing is get in a community of other entrepreneurs. That's the most important thing I would say to start with. Be with others who are maybe a little bit ahead of you, who can share some of the learning and the experiences along the way, but definitely don't isolate yourself and stay alone. I think that's the biggest challenge that I had. I thought I had to do everything. I didn't ask for help, which I think is another thing that we're conditioned with. We think, oh, everyone else is so busy too. I just have to figure this out on my own. And I think that slows you down, makes it harder, increases the number of voices in your head telling you that you're not ready to do this yet. And really, you're perfect the way you are. Get very clear on what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then find the people that are good at things that you aren't. For me, that would be like the key sort of focus. And I'm not saying don't read books, and I'm not saying don't go to Idunn school, because I'm sure her school is totally unbelievable. It's just this surrounding yourself with others who can support you is the number one thing that I would suggest to any entrepreneur starting out.
Thank you, Vicki. And that's really sound advice. What I found working with women and girls, particularly with girls, is we love community. That's something that's really important to us. And so that advice around don't isolate yourself, I think is really profound, because that's something that we thrive in, being able to come together, as community. And I think that perfectionist idea around that fear of failure, we constantly want to be able to make sure we are coming in perfect. And that's not necessarily, reality. Michelle, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, so I'm both an entrepreneur and have worked in corporations on new products and marketing and launching new things, and also I teach it. So if you are in a business school program, there are certain courses that I think are particularly relevant. One of the things I find new people who are working on new ventures, they're very focused on getting VC money. They're not as focused on learning how to market their product and service. And I feel that that's a big lacking. At Columbia, there's a greenhouse program for people who want to launch new products. They audition, they startups to enter it. And they've made my course in marketing plan development mandatory because, again, you need to market your idea, okay? If it's the greatest idea in the world at the best price, but nobody knows about it, you're not going to sell anything. So courses that I think are relevant are digital marketing, because people can afford TV, but they can afford digital marketing. Everybody can afford digital marketing. And if you have a great idea that goes viral, it can make a huge difference. So I think that's important. I think understanding marketing strategies, your competitors, your target audience, their journey are really important. I think that new product and service development programs are great because they can help you ideate across more different aspects of the product, because new products and services are not just one idea. There are many ideas done together and also understanding business model options and how to project sales, because I think people make bad assumptions. Most new products fail, and it helps you get grounded in being able to project the profitability and viability of the idea and learn how to test it and refine and improve it and iterate on it.
Thank you, Michelle. Idunn, your thoughts?
Yeah. So I agree with everything that had been said. So when I started working at my company, I came straight out of our MBA program, and I was offered to take a part of the startup initiative within my school. And if I look back and what I became much more mindful with the time was, for example, when I started paying more attention of the mission of our company and our values. And then realizing that maybe I had grown to become very much aligned. The mission of IESE, we want to develop leaders who aspire to have a positive impact on the teams, on the organization, and on the society through the professionalism, integrity, and spirit of service. And one of our values is leading by setting an example. So I think, when I realized maybe I think when I started, I was much more focused on getting in client, getting in more business, getting in the revenues without maybe necessarily and intentionally so connect with our why. And I just think for any type of business that you are, if you're connecting to the why and the mission and intentionally aware of the impact that the organization and that you aligned with that want to have, I think that is a game changer. And then I also agree with what Michelle was saying about marketing. And I think that also, studying at schools and business education helps you understand better the value proposition of your organization, of your product, and value proposition, meaning what are your unique selling points and what is it that you are doing differently from the competition. And research that some of my colleagues have done at the IESE has shown, and Michelle was referring also to that 2/3 of startups, they fail, and the reason is poor value proposition. And then to Vicki's point, I also believe that networking and collaboration is extremely important. Networking and also within your organization, especially if you work for big organizations, and externally with diverse and find different ways to collaborate. And then ask yourself, what does need to be done in my organization? What is the job to be done? And what kind of a relationship and collaboration do I need to have to get things done?
Thank you, Idunn. And since Michelle and you had talked about digital marketing, my next question is really around STEM, in particular, since we're talking about the digital, we're talking about tech. I would say, in the past couple of decades, STEM has become this catchphrase. So STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and especially with just this boom of big tech. So many of the growing businesses are in biotech, data science, tech, the environment. What would you say is, how critical is STEM really, STEM education to the growing number of female entrepreneurs? If Michelle, you wanted to lead this conversation?
Okay, I think it's very helpful if you want to be the scientist coming up with the discovery. I think engineering probably is a phenomenal degree especially for a woman to have, but I also think that you can learn more than you realize. It's great to have the education and it's necessary for certain types of innovations, but like I write now about technology and digital, and I don't consider myself such a techie person, but you can learn it. You can learn some things. I don't say that you can learn how to come up with a COVID vaccine, but if you have a passion and you want to be the inventor, if it's related to engineering or whatever, it's great to have it. But you can also be involved in startups that deal with STEM subjects and not be an expert, as long as some of the other panelists mentioned, you have people on your team that are the experts. If you can understand it and appreciate it in the big picture and move the business forward, that's great. So I guess it depends on all the context or your relationship to the innovation and what your role is.
Thank you. Vicki or Idunn, would you have, any additional thoughts around that?
I would just add that, and I'm so happy, Bunmi, that you are, you studied engineering, because I think it's really sad that how few women, we have in this sector. And so I think, the future will be reinvented by technology. And it's sad that, less than 30% of students in these subjects who study science or technology, they're women, they're minority. And so I think this is something that we have to start very early. We have to start working with young girls in middle school and to get them excited and get them excited that it's cool to study this and maybe, become dreamers of how they can make impact.
Thank you.
I'll just jump in on this because I studied computer science way back in the day. And I have a bit of a different view on this. I mean, I think the world is obsessed with technology as a solution to everything, and I don't believe it. I think that, yes, it's important to study in the STEM careers. For me, it was really to understand possibilities, but not actually to be the techie, right? So part of the thing is a more broad understanding of looking at the world differently and having a different lens on things. And that you can hire technology people. But it's that, like, the ability to rethink things, to reimagine different worlds, to use technology to solve issues. And I think, we don't talk much about this right now, but I think we're going to be talking about it a lot more in the future, is what social technologies of, like, how we can organize as peoples together, how we can collaborate differently and recognize that we have everything that we need around us to redesign and rethink the world. And so technology so I'm a bit more of a STEAM than a STEM person, which is just really looking across all of the different modalities, all of the sectors that we have, and thinking about how we use technology for change versus technology as the answer to everything.
Yeah, I really, really like that, concept, and especially, as an engineer, I always kind of see it that it's a tool to be able to, help, solve things, and it's not the end all be all. So I love that, point. Vicki, I wasn't sure.
Well, I was just maybe going to just say one more thing on that. So it's, I think we have such a focus on a product innovation and a bright, shiny new thing that's going to solve everything. Like, there's one answer that's just going to, like, if we just figured out this one thing, everything would be better. But I think the thing that we haven't really figured out is how to live together. And how to be in relationship with one another. And oftentimes in technology teaching, we don't really talk about the relationship between things. And so 20-something years ago, I was asked by a government in Canada, how do you get more girls interested in technology, right? We're still asking the same question 20-something years later. And I don't think it's how do you get more girls interested in this? It's like, what can you do with technology? And come at it from the relational perspective. When we did that with programs called Girls Are It many years ago, it's like, what do you want to change in the world? What is it that you think is broken that you would like to fix or tweak? And then how can tech enable that? So I think if you approach this from the relationship-based area, to your earlier point, Bunmi, that actually opens a different door. But the way that we teach a lot of this stuff is learn all this jargon, learn all these things first, and then we'll talk about what to do with it later. And that door opening isn't as exciting or energizing for a lot of young women from my experience.
Well, thank you so much for that, Vicki. And that's exactly, when I think even, towards my background and the STEM education I've done, particularly for girls, it has really been around what is our interest? What do we care about? And the beauty of being a woman, being a girl is that we do really kind of think around community and being able to really kind of develop solutions to whatever, issues or problems exist, in our community is something that we want to do. STEM is that vehicle towards, getting to that place. So I think that that's something, being able to kind of refocus and reimagine how we can use STEM versus having entering into STEM and trying to just retool that. So kind of another piece that I'm really kind of thinking around is the MBA when we think about education. So we've talked about STEM, as education, and then what we hear in society a lot of times is that need of, if you want to run a business or start a business, you need to get a business degree, or you need to, get an MBA. And I'd love to, since, Idunn, you are Chief Executive Director of IESE Business School in New York, I'd love to kind of just hear your take on how an MBA education could help in starting a business. And is it essential?
So I obviously is a true believer that an MBA can help, whether you're starting up your own company or running a business. And an MBA, referring a little bit what Vicki was saying, it really develops the business acumen and general management perspectives and this holistic view, to think out of the box and maybe, connecting the dots that we were referring to. And at IESE, we value the entrepreneur mindset it's integrated in all of our curriculum. We are really focused on entrepreneurship in all of our programs and developing the entrepreneur mindset. And in our MBA alone, we have 11 electives on entrepreneurship. And we've seen, Michelle, welcome, we can see you.
I don't know why, because my line's been off the entire time. I don't know what happened, why all of a sudden. I have no idea.
Great. And so I was saying that within 5 years of graduating, our MBA, they have started, 30% of our MBA have started off the business. So within 5 years of graduating. And we also, at IESE, we also know that entrepreneurs, they cannot not flourish only with academic knowledge. So that's why we've created like an ecosystem, a full ecosystems where we bring together our faculty, aspiring and successful entrepreneurs, business leaders and investors to give our students the advice and the networking and the mentoring and the money to invest in their ventures, to take their ventures alive. And we have, if we look at our alumni entrepreneurs, we have that we've invested in them $1.5 billion that has come through this ecosystem of business angels and venture capitalism that we support them with. And just also adding to the value of an MBA, I'm a true believer that if you do an MBA, you should do it in outside of your country or in a different setting. And that's also what helps open your mind and to create, to become more creative, more curious, because you are with different cultures and backgrounds, and also the network that you develop is so valuable and something that you can always tap into. And we see, so much collaboration going on. And just the last point also, what we aspire to do, and I know that many MBA programs do that, we aspire not to develop only a good manager and successful entrepreneurs, but also good people that are mindful about making a positive impact and practicing ethical leadership.
Thank you, Idunn. That's really an interesting point, particularly around the global aspect and doing that abroad. Because for many people, especially we're talking about starting businesses, we're talking about scaling, we're talking about global business. So being able to really kind of understand your global customers, that's a key point. I really like that. Michelle, I know, as an educator, you definitely have a take around the MBA and business degree. Love to hear.
Well, I just echo what everybody else has said. There are many benefits of an MBA. Networking with alumni, speakers that come on campus that are inspiring. I just spoke this week at Kellogg, where I went to business school at Kellogg, and I came as a guest speaker talking about my career, and students were asking me a lot of great questions. So you have access to speakers who have had the benefit of experience to share, skill sets that you learn. I already went through the skill sets I think you need. Also, I think you have more self-confidence, and you're very much inspired you're surrounded by a lot of entrepreneur success stories, and you've seen that they can do it, and so it inspires you to do it as well. So I think, it's great for all those reasons. I think you can be successful without an MBA, but I do think it helps. And I just want to echo, I think maybe what Vicki said, that anybody who, the students that I've had a number of students who become millionaires, and the ones that are the ones who ask everybody possible. They would take me to dinner or coffee or whatever and pick my brains. And they did it with as many different people as they could to learn outside of the classroom. But I think, you get introduced to people and then you follow up with them and you can have a discussion and you just keep learning from everybody that you can.
This is great. I had a question, specifically for Vicki, around accelerators and incubators. So I know there's now kind of been a number of woman-focused accelerators and incubators, from top tech firms like Microsoft to Google to even Melinda Gates' Pivotal Ventures, and of course SheEO, among others. And so I'd love to just hear from you, what role do accelerators and incubators play in the startup success story for women?
Yeah, this is like a pretty nuanced question, depending on how you define incubator or accelerator. I don't define SheEO as that. We talk about ourselves as an incubator or as an ecosystem-based approach. So traditional incubators and accelerators that come out of universities that or come out of these corporate approaches, it sort of depends on how they're designed, but the vast majority of them are designed with a playbook in mind for high growth companies that are tech focused. There really is a playbook attached to that. And there's a new report that came out from the World Economic Forum last week saying that incubators and accelerators are actually exacerbating the gender gap, making it worse. And so I would encourage people to go look at that report by the WEF, because like this is basically a woman's version of an existing male designed model, which is all about like, get on stage, beat your chest, tell everyone how you're going to disrupt the universe and become the next unicorn, which women don't do. We're just like way more practical. We're like, I'm going to get this done, and we get it done. And when we sort of showboat and stand on stage and, try and mimic the dominant narrative of what you're supposed to be, we actually are less successful. People are hard on us. The questions that you get asked at incubators and accelerators as a woman are very different often than the questions that get asked for men at these kinds of things. And so way back in the day, in 1999, I had the first incubator and accelerator in Canada. So like I learned through experiencing that playbook really has a lot of challenges for how women lead. And so SheEO is my kind of like over the last 20 years, I've sort of looked at all of the ways that we set that playbook up, the challenges that come with it, the conditioning in society around what a successful leader looks like. And so we've kind of gone to this place, which is super on your own terms, running your business how you want to, at your pace, given your life conditions and everything that's going on. And capital and support comes to you from your perspective, not from what we think you should be doing. Like you need to spend as much money as possible, grow as fast as possible to reach these goals. And I think the jury's really out, or maybe the jury is like actually told us that stuff doesn't work. There's very few unicorns that exist. Less than 1% of companies really need that kind of funding and that kind of playbook. But because we've done such a good job marketing that narrative, that's what you need to do to grow. We've caused a real confusion in the marketplace, because in country I'm from, Canada, or everyone else on here, somewhere between 90 and 98% of all economies are small and medium-sized businesses. That's what they're made up of. And yet we continue to have a narrative out there that in order to grow, you have to get venture capital. It's not true. There's tons of other kinds of capital, lots of other ways to grow, lots of different paces, lots of different versions of success. But we tend to have a narrative in the world that there's only one kind of success: go big or go home. And so at SheEO, we're really trying to shift that narrative and show that there's lots of other ways to get there. And I think it's just important as an entrepreneur, if you're going to go into an incubator and accelerator, that you understand the playbook they have and what they view as success. And if it's a really broad cross section, that's awesome. And if it's you have to be big or you're not going to work, I think you need to take that into consideration. I mean, I continue to have lots and lots of young women come to me and go, my professor told me that my idea won't scale, so I'm not going to start. And I'm like, what do they know? How do they know that? You haven't even tried it yet. But I think it's just because we have such a dominant narrative around this. Nothing against professors at all. Just that most of us are being conditioned to think that there's only one way to grow. And I think that we need to really shift that thinking if we're going to get to the kind of world that I want to live in, which is where we design things that benefit everyone.
I just want to add one thing. I've written a few articles about Sephora because they have an accelerator almost exclusively for women. And I've written actually about different stages of their development of it. But I think, it's cosmetics is female category. Nevertheless, I do think they give a lot of support, training, exposure, and things like that. They are trying to help women because women are their customers. So partly it's good for their business and their image to do that.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, your comments just gave me goosebumps, just kind of thinking about what it is, we do and how we position just this idea of scale, scale, scale. And a lot of, the comments and the pushback that I'm seeing, particularly like in, 2020, in 2021, especially is just this, is this sustainable? The burnout, particularly for, founders who just feel like they are constantly working these hours that just don't make any sense to achieve, a milestone that is it truly realistic or not. So it's really great to kind of hear that point. Before I moved on to the next question, just wanted to check if Idunn, if maybe you had any thoughts around this as well.
Just sharing that what we are doing from our school this year, we are launching together with the European Union a women's entrepreneurship bootcamp, which is acceleration program where we work with women in the earlier growth stage. And this is just also, our commitment to entrepreneurship, bringing in a lot of mentoring and bringing in investors to help this women become a part of a community and facilitate them to take their business as well.
Thank you for sharing that. So my next question is just around this idea of this, entrepreneur mindset. And so a lot of places, you read about this, you'll hear talks around this idea that there is a specific mindset. And my question is, can that be taught? And I'd love to hear maybe from just your experiences from running businesses, starting businesses, or even from women that you've worked with and maybe trained, around that, your thoughts on it. And this is open to who would like to start.
I could start. I think, entrepreneurship is a behavior. So as a behavior, it can certainly be taught. And I think as a behavior, you need knowledge, you need some skills, and you need to have a mindset and attitude. And if we look at the knowledge, I think if you have something in mind which is small and you want to keep it small, maybe you don't need the knowledge. But if you really want to take your business to grow it and have an impact on your industry, I believe you need that business knowledge. You need to understand the economical context. You need to understand geopolitics. You need to understand how to run business and how to manage people. And then I would just start in terms of mindset, I think, and that's also related to knowledge. Having a learning agility is very important, and learning agility is the willingness and the capability to react, like on things when we have extreme changes like COVID, like be agile and react. And also as an entrepreneur, be willing to, and we mentioned that earlier, to just have a diverse network, surround yourself, and as Michelle was saying, people who are successful, ask people, have coffees, just ask questions, and be willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, push yourself out of your comfort zone, because being uncomfortable, I think that's the way you grow and learn.
So I agree with Idunn, and I want to build on some of the things she said. I think you need to be a problem solver as an entrepreneur, because it's Murphy's Law on steroids. You're in new territory, you're trying to innovate things that have never been done before, and then learn about so many different aspects of business that you may have thought about the product, but not about the distribution or the marketing or the selling or whatever. So you have to be someone who, as Idunn said, likes to learn about lots of different things and solving problems every day. Also, you need to have a certain tolerance for rejection. I heard a comment from a VC today, and I never forgot this quote: "If you're not getting rejected enough, you're not trying hard enough, or you're not getting rejected often." So you will get rejected so many times, but if you take no, if you just immediately run away because someone said no to you, I've been told no by companies only to enter another way into the company through somebody else who appreciated what I was offering. So you can't say, well, I talked to them and they're not interested. You have to figure out, well, are there other ways or other people that you can talk to? And then also, I think women have to be less fearful of asking for things. I know that's hard for me sometimes, asking for people for favors or whatever. But as Bunmi, you mentioned in your prep for us, that 3% of all VC funds went to women in 2019. I read Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, and it's partly because women don't ask. They underestimate their value and their worth and their capability. And so I think they need to be more confident and you know, feel that they're every bit as good or better than men. That's it.
That's all we need. Yeah, maybe I'll just add into, I mean, I think people have probably heard of this concept of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, which I think is, you know, super, super critical. And I mean, there's a difference between like having an entrepreneurial mindset and being an entrepreneur. I also just want to, you know, there's lots of people that I know that work in corporate that have an entrepreneurial mindset. They're kind of like a can-do, get things done person, but they would never be an entrepreneur. So I think there's really a sort of spectrum there, and increasingly we're all going to need to figure out how to be self-starters to navigate the obstacles that exist and get things done, especially in this crazy isolated space that we're in right now. And so you know, I think there are degrees of it. I also think like pure entrepreneurs, kind of like me, are like, I am absolutely unemployable by anybody. I would be like the worst employee ever. I love the freedom and the autonomy that I have as an entrepreneur to like go out and try things. And my idea of, I remember once talking to a coach of mine and saying, I don't view that as risky. And she's like, yeah, because you're off the charts with your risk, right? You don't even see things as risk. You see everything as an opportunity. And so I think there's just like a big range. I want to just be clear on all of these things that we're talking about here. It's not an either or. It's not some duality of you're this or you're that. We all have different degrees of these things. And, you know, someone mentioned the discomfort piece. I think it might have been Michelle. I mean, this is a really interesting thing. It's like, it is uncomfortable to learn. It is uncomfortable to be in spaces of change. And so the sort of fixed mindset versus growth mindset is just like going from it's too hard being in a fixed mindset to with more practice, I can get better. Or I'm afraid of making a mistake to mistakes are how I learn. And so I think this fixed and growth mindset is something we can all get better at growth mindset, which is really like, I think, elemental to being more entrepreneurial. Yeah, I think that's probably all I have to say on that. Thanks.
Can I just add to something that you were saying, Vicki? And I absolutely agree with you with the growth mindset. And I would just say, and you know, when you refer to being an entrepreneur, that was someone starting a company, just the way, you know, we our definition, the way we define entrepreneurship at our school is both to start up your own and also becoming an entrepreneur within a business. And I think that's also what we need. We need people within organizations to become entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, as we sometimes refer to them, and being proactive and look for opportunities and create new things. And so I just want to say, I think you can absolutely be an entrepreneur, you know, although you're not working for your own company.
I really like that point too about the intrapreneur. Because even like for me personally, I feel that that's like something where, you know, I have that entrepreneurial mindset, but it's nice to be able to be in that space where someone has already started it and I help them kind of lift that up so it gets better. So yeah, that really speaks to me. So next question I have really kind of is flowing within this like idea of an entrepreneurial mindset, and it's really thinking through what the most valuable lesson you've learned as an entrepreneur or a woman leader. And if you had to kind of change maybe one thing about your entrepreneurial or leadership journey, what would it be?
I mean, mine is, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it's really this shifting from my scarcity lens to an abundance lens. which was only possible through starting to ask for help. And I, every time I stand in front of a room of women at these events that I do, I'm like, how many people here would help someone if they asked right now? And always all hands go up. And they're like, how many people like asking for help? And it's like, no hands, crickets. And this is, I do this to sort of demonstrate that, and to do the flip in our minds around you not asking for help robs somebody else of the gifts they have to give. And so if you think of it in a different way, not that like Vicki, so I'll say it right now, which I always do, which is connect with me on LinkedIn. I have 20 something thousand, some ridiculous number of contacts. Almost all of them owe me a favor. And I'm never going to be able to use all those favors. So if you reach out to me and you look through my connections and there's somebody there that you want to reach out to that could help you with what you're doing, I will make that introduction. And every time I say this and I ask people to reach out, I'm told that people go, she said that, but does she really mean it? I'm sure she doesn't mean it. She's got to be really busy. How is she going to respond if I ask this? And then if I ask her and she doesn't respond, then I'm going to think that she didn't really mean it anyway, and therefore I'm going to be more disappointed. So I won't even say anything. Does that sound familiar in anyone's head? Right? Like this is one of the things that we do. And so, I think test me out, try it out. And I will respond. I literally respond to everything. I'm super crazy that way. I'm just really, really am excited about doing that stuff. And it's effortless to just do that stuff online. I cannot do a 15-minute call, but I'm happy to do that kind of stuff online. And so I really just think small little asks, not like, hey, what do you think you've done this before. Could I pick your brain on how to, no, that's not going to happen. But if you ask for these small bite-sized chunks, you'll be really surprised how many people say yes. And then it will encourage you to do more of that. And the way that I get lots of things done in a day is I know people who are faster than me at doing things that I am not good at. And that builds engagement when you're starting to ask people around you. So this asking for help, knowing what you're good at, focusing on that, and then build your network by finding all the other people that are amazing at the things that you're not. That would be the number one thing.
And that's great, because that connects really to what Michelle said about, asking and rejection and that idea. And if you start small and just ask for something that doesn't feel so painful because you're not asking the world, it's something like, okay, if she says no, it's not the end of the world. But, if she says yes, who knows, what can happen.
Can I just build on that? Why I think some people are afraid to ask. Sometimes people are afraid that if they expose their idea to anybody, it will be stolen. And I find that that's like not the best fear in the world, that, patent it if you can, but there's much more of a risk of bad execution than someone stealing your ideas. And if you don't ask for all the information to make it as good as it can be, it's going to languish.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. And if I may add on what you've been saying, one thing. When I started working as, coming straight from my MBA and kind of thinking everyone is going to expect me to know everything, they hired me as an MBA and I cannot, ask. So that's also, what I've learned also, to be extremely humble and asking, and also, like you were saying, Vicki, offer your help, because I think you receive so much, by giving. And one thing also that I've learned, and what's been a valuable lesson for me is, being very intentionally focused always on the person, and practicing, becoming very empathetic. And I think empathy, you can use it in all different relationships, whether it is with your colleagues, team, your boss, and clients, and being empathetic and listening more and really caring more. That really helps. And if we talk about, of course, with your team and with your client, if you're really caring and listening, then you know better how to serve them. And that's how you also build relationships.
Thank you for that. So we have about 6 or so minutes left. This has been really kind of just deep and rich conversation. Kind of the ending question I have is, around a favorite quote or personal mantra that you use to keep yourself motivated. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I have had, my favorite quote for so many years, and I even put it on the wall of my kids when they were young. Is if you can dream it, you can do it. And it's a Walt Disney quote, and I really believe, and this is something from a leadership book that I read. Everyone knows, or many people know from probably 30 years ago, the Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That Covey says that things get created twice: first in your mind by visualize, and then they physically. So and another mantra of mine is counting my blessing, being grateful, and having developed the habit that at the beginning of every day, at the end of this day, what would I like to be grateful for? And that also has to do with kind of a visualizing. And I just think that gratitude is such a powerful thing.
I'll ditto to that one. Gratitude is everything. I mean, it just opens us up to also recognize the impact that we can have. I mean, there's a question that I have at the end of each day, which is, what am I grateful for? And then the second one, and what was my role in that? Because I think it helps you to understand the power and the efficacy you can have in the world. One of my favorite quotes, I wish I had said this, is from Buckminster Fuller. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's something I spent a lot of my life trying to go fix systems. And then when I flipped it around and went, what if we created a new one? I'm not interested in leveling the playing field. I want to create a new one. With SheEO, we started to get a lot of traction. There's more change that I've been part of in the last 5 years than the previous 25 years of trying to fix things. And so that to me was it's a big shift.
Okay, and for me, I'd say happiness is found along the way, not at the end of the road. And a similar one to that is don't hurry, don't worry, and don't forget to smell the flowers. Don't be just so like your whole life is tied up with whether you're successful or not. Look at what you're learning. Look at the relationships you're creating. Look at the new insights you're getting. Look at the positive in every step along the way. Don't just be so goal focused that's you're miserable if it's not happening exactly the way you want. I just want to say 2 other ones, which is embrace screw ups. I can't tell you how many things that didn't go right for me that I might have been upset at the time, but led me on another path that led me to even better things. So be flexible. I know Idunn was flexibility in your own life and in your career. Sometimes, you do things that you otherwise never would have that turn out to be great. And then lastly, kind of just if I would say, my advice to people is don't worry too much. I mean, worry to some degree, but don't worry too much. When I went to Kellogg, and I remember I was on an airplane that ended up landing in Philadelphia instead of New York when I was going home. And I walked past the Ben Franklin statue in the middle of the campus. And I just thought to myself how I worried so much in undergrad about grad school and what my career would be like and all this stuff, and how it was worrying for nothing. It was unuseful energy. So I just think maybe worry a little bit less. As long as you try hard and have a good attitude, things will work out.
These are great. I was just kind of jotting this down as just reminders for myself. Something, for me, as I even kind of think around my personal mantra. So my name, Bunmi Esho, actually the initials kind of form B. So I always kind of think of that, like be present, and so that's been something that I've probably carried with me for, a number of years. But just really kind of wrapping things up, I want to just thank, all of you for being a part of this conversation. It was really rich. I learned, a lot of things. I really just connected to a lot of things that were shared. Specifically, I would say just around this idea of community, something that I already knew in myself, that is an important piece for women entrepreneurs, women leaders, just this idea, and Vicki and Idunn, many of you had said it, just understanding what our interests are and how to solve problems around there. That should be something that we should really kind of think about. The idea around global perspective, and really making sure that we're kind of thinking about that, especially if we're thinking around scaling, being yourself and not trying to be a man because we are women. That's something for us to really, think about. And really around this idea of perfection, and how we think to ourselves that we have to be perfect. We have to provide, this perfect response. We have to provide this perfect product at the first time, and really understanding that failure and the imperfection is actually part of learning. Risk is opportunity. The growth mindset versus fixed mindset, making sure that we have that, and pushing through our discomfort is something that's really, really important for us to be able to think around. And really the idea of scarcity versus abundance, and really thinking more in that abundance lens is something that's, really important to us. And I think that for all of us on this conversation, some of us are entrepreneurs and have started things, and some of us are entrepreneurially minded, where we are leaders in, our different spaces and can be those entrepreneurs. So thank you so much for this great conversation. And I hope that everyone on chat was able to participate as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.